Hello everyone, welcome back to my class. I'm back once again with a new lesson, and this time I will be doing a beautiful lesson from your book First Flight, and the name of the lesson is From the Diary of Anne Frank by Anne Frank. This is a story of a young girl named Anne Frank. The story is based on her diary. Anne was a Jewish girl who had to go into hiding during World War II to avoid the Nazis. She shared her experiences in the story when she was depressed. So let us see and read the diary of a young girl. Before I begin the chapter, let me give you a little bit of introduction about the author of From the Diary of Anne Frank, and the author is herself, Anne Frank. Anneliese Marie Anne Frank was a German-born teenager Jewish girl. She was one of the most discussed Jewish victims of the Holocaust. She gained fame posthumously with the publication of The Diary of a Young Girl, in which she documented her life in hiding from 1942 to 1944 during the German occupation of Netherlands in World War II. Born in Frankfurt, Germany, she lived most of her life in or near Amsterdam, Netherlands, having moved there with her family at the age of 4.5 when the Nazis gained control over Germany. Born as German national, she lost her citizenship in 1941 and thus became stateless. By May 1940, the Franks were trapped in Amsterdam by the German occupation of the Netherlands. Persecutions of the Jewish population increased in July 1942. The Franks went into hiding in some concealed rooms behind a bookcase in the building where Anne's father, Otto Frank, worked. From then until the family's arrest by the Gestapo in August 1944, she kept a diary she had received as a birthday present and wrote in it regularly. Following their arrest, the Franks were transported to concentration camps. In October or November 1944, Anne and her sister Margaret were transferred from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where they died, probably of typhus, and a few months later in 1945. Let me also give you the background of The Diary of a Young Girl. The book, The Diary of a Young Girl, also known as The Diary of Anne Frank, is a book originally written in Dutch language by Anne Frank while she was in hiding for 2 years with her family during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. During the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands, Anne Frank received a blank diary as one of her presents on 12th June 1942, her 13th birthday. According to the Anne Frank house, the red checked autograph book which Anne used as her diary was actually not a surprise, since she had chosen it the day before with her father when browsing a bookstore near her home. She began to write it in 2 days later. On 5th July 1942, Anne's older sister Margot received an official summons to report to a Nazi work camp in Germany, and on 6th July, Margot and Anne went into hiding with her parents Otto Frank and Edith Hollander Frank. In August 1944, they were discovered and deported to Nazi concentration camps. Of the 8 people, only Otto Frank survived the war, that is World War II, and was 15 years old when she died in Bergen-Belsen. The exact date of her death is unknown and has long been believed to be in the late February or early March, a few weeks before the prisoners were liberated by British troops on 15th April 1945. Otto, the only survivor of the Frank family, returned to Amsterdam after the war to find that her diary had been saved by his secretary Miep Gies, and his efforts led to its publication in 1947. It was translated from its original Dutch version and first published in English in 1952 as The Diary of a Young Girl and has since been translated into over 70 languages. Let's move to the main text. From the Diary of Anne Frank is an excerpt from The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Anne Frank had expressed the desire in the introduction of her diary for one person that she could call her truest friend, that is, a person to whom she could confide her deepest thoughts and feelings. She observed that she had many friends and equally many admirers, but by her own definition, no true or dear friend with whom she could share her innermost thoughts. So she started writing a diary. She named the diary Kitty, which she considered as her only true friend. She mentioned about her childhood days, her family, and a lot of other things that she told no one else in her diary. Let's begin the chapter. I will be explaining you paragraph wise. So the first paragraph, writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Me is Anne Frank herself talking. Not only because I have never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musing of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. Let's see the explanation. The author Anne Frank feels that it is strange and unusual for her to write in a diary about her feelings and experiences because it was the first time she was doing it. She feels this because, according to her opinion, no one would be interested in reading about a young school going girl's past and future. She also thinks that later even she will not be interested in reading it. But then she puts these thoughts away and decides that she should write if she really likes to write a diary, wants to pour out her hurts in the form of a diary. She feels the need to write because there were a lot of thoughts she had been holding onto lately and she needed to get them off her mind. So she makes the decision of writing a diary. Let's move to the next paragraph. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience, and since I am not planning to let anyone else read this stiff backed notebook grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Let's see explanation. Annie feels that paper has much more tolerance than people. A piece of paper, being a non living thing, would not refuse to hear her and will listen to her patiently and quietly. One day, when she was feeling more sad and confused than usual, she could not even decide whether to go out or stay at home at the time. When she finally decides to stay at home, and she sat being depressed and in deep thought. Again, she consoled herself that paper had more patience than, and decided to write everything that came in her mind, because she did not intend on making someone else read her diary unless she found a real friend. And by real friend, she meant a friend with whom she could share all her secrets. The author then becomes back to the point where she thought of beginning to write. It is because she is lonely and has no friend to talk to. Next paragraph. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world, and I am not. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I am with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get into closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault, and we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change. This is why I've started the diary. So she's saying, she's giving all the explanation why did she start writing a diary. And it goes on explaining when she feels the need for a friend. She feels that no one is going to believe that a young girl like her is so alone, which practically she is not, because she has a loving family, near about 30 people that can be called friends, loving aunts, and a good place to stay. This depicts a clear picture of a family, but the one thing that lacks in her life is the presence of a true friend with whom she can share everything. She does have a good time with friends, and they talk about stuff but not real stuff that is actually going on in their lives. Despite trying hard, they are unable to get closer. She feels that maybe it is her who is not able to, it is her fault who is not able to trust anyone with their private stuff, that is not able to come any closer to her friends. She feels that the current situation cannot be changed, and thus she needs to write her feelings in a diary. Let's see the next paragraph. To enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary the way most people would do, but I want the diary to be my friend, and I am going to call this friend Kitty. So she gives a name to her diary, and the name that she gives to her diary is Kitty. And she also says that she does not want to write a diary just like many other people do, by jotting down their day to day happenings. This is because she wanted to give her need for a friend a shape, and thus decides to name the diary as Kitty. So she finds a true friend in the diary, and her diary is called Kitty, and this diary becomes world famous. So that's all in my today's video. In my today's video, I have talked about the introduction of Anne Frank, the background of the diary, and also talked about the family of Anne Frank, and explain the chapter paragraphs wise. Few paragraphs I have explained. In my next video, I will be continuing with the paragraph wise explanation. I thank you all for watching my video, and I would also like to thank Google and Wikipedia, because all the pictures that you can see that in my video are taken from Google, and few information I have collected from Wikipedia. And I would like to request you all that if you are liking my videos, then please do subscribe my channel and also press the bell icon so that whenever I post a new video, you are notified. Thank you so much for watching. Till I meet again with my new lesson. Stay good, stay happy.